Okay, so we're back again with another review here, and this is for Johnny W. He wanted me to talk about and review The Dead Zone, which stars Christopher Walken, Stephen King's The Dead Zone, directed by David Cronenberg. And yeah, this was a good movie. I mean, I've seen this before. It's definitely been a while. But it was great to rewatch again because I had not seen it in, again, a while. Which I have, I thought I had the movie. And I was looking for it, and I don't know. I'm gonna have to buy another copy, find it on Blu-ray. I could not find my movie anywhere that I thought I had in my collection. And yeah, I was looking for it and looking for it. And eventually, I'm like, well, let me just rent it. So that's how I watched it. And yeah, this is again a good film here. And again, directed by David Cronenberg, who, directed Videodrome. He also directed The Fly, two great movies, and a great director. And which later on, of course, with this movie, it was made into a TV show. And in fact, I have the first season right there with Anthony Michael Hall. And I'll get it real quick, as a matter of fact. Yeah, so I remember when this was on USA, but and believe it or not, it's still in the wrap. Yeah, it's still in the plastic here. I've never really sat down and watched the show. But I mean, yeah, I mean, again, I've only seen maybe a little bit of The Dead Zone. And I think I don't know where I got this, but it wasn't much. Hashtag support physical media. But anyways, that's another side topic. But what I really enjoyed here about The Dead Zone, right off the bat, we get kind of this atmospheric direction. I really enjoyed the slow transition of the titles in the beginning of the film. And kind of like the slow build up. And then we get Christopher Walken's character where, basically, long story short, he gets into an accident and he has these premonitions. And it's funny because in the beginning of the film, you see Christopher Walken, he's reading The Legend of Sleepy Hollow in front of the class, which is funny because later on he would be the Headless Horseman in Sleepy Hollow. So I thought that was interesting. But again, he has these premonitions, stuff that, has already happened or happened, but, Christopher Walken does a great job here. And you also have, other supporting players here. The actress, which I forgot her name, and I thought she was fine. I thought she did fine here in the movie. That although, I kind of wonder. Again, I say she did fine, but I wonder if maybe a Karen Allen would have been better. I would have liked to have seen her maybe be the wife character like Karen Allen around this time. I think she would have been a little bit better, but he gets into a car accident. Going back to Christopher Walken, he goes into a coma for 5 years. His wife leaves him, and that's when, after the coma and, awaking from this coma, that he has visions. And you all remember the moment where in the movie, he sees these kids in a burning house. And he's like, hey, this house is on fire. And he has a doctor that they kind of, become friends where, Christopher Walken is able to grab his hand and basically, he knows his childhood, the trauma that, he went through. And so, and then meanwhile, you have Tom Skerritt in the movie. Yeah, Tom Skerritt from Alien. He's this, cop, and they're looking for this killer, the Castle Rock killer. And meanwhile, Christopher Walken, rebuilds his relationship with his wife. and he's getting these visions, of this killer that they're looking for. Again, the Castle Rock, killer. And, there's this moment where, he finds out that the killer is a cop, a police officer. And they go to the guy's house, and the guy's mother tries to kill Christopher Walken. And I know I'm kind of, giving stuff away here. But, the guy kills himself, which is weird because that scene where the killer kills himself, and I'm like, okay, the Christopher Walken and the police officer are already in the house. You mean to tell me that, they were already upstairs, they didn't hear anything happen? The guy killing himself, they didn't hear any kind of shuffle or any kind of noise that would indicate that this guy could self-harm, or any kind of big thud. They're inside the house, they're getting ready to take this guy in, and they know that this is the killer. And they're all upstairs, and I'm like, that's the one scene that kind of okay, did you not hear anything, or that this guy could self-harm? And but the killer kills himself with a pair of scissors, which that scene is I wouldn't say freaking me out, but just the idea of taking a pair of scissors and doing that. But and then the mother tries to kill Christopher Walken, and she gets shot, which I think I already mentioned. But basically, as the movie goes along, Christopher Walken, his visions get more powerful, and as a result, it's kind of draining away his life, and draining away his energy, and it's really breaking down his I can't even think of the word, but just the more powerful his visions get, it's kind of again draining his life. And meanwhile, you have Martin Sheen in the movie. He's this politician, and which is funny because the way Martin Sheen plays his character, it's believable, because it's like every other politician that you see on TV, where they talk a whole lot and they try to reel in the people with the way they I can't even talk, see? With the way that they present themselves. There you go. See, I would not be a good politician because I can't even speak words. But, Martin Sheen, again, he's this crooked politician, so you got that's a whole nother subplot there. And Christopher Walken's character, he's a teacher, so he gets hired by one of the staff of Martin Sheen to teach his son. But it comes to a point where, Christopher Walken, he has this vision that his son is going to die. And he's like, hey, the ice is going to break. Don't go skating. Don't do any of that. And he, the son, doesn't go. And basically he's trying to change the outcome of these premonitions that Christopher Walken's character has. And meanwhile, Martin Sheen is doing some very shady deals by, blackmailing, and, Christopher Walken, at some point, he finds out that Martin Sheen is, crooked. And it basically leads to the end of the movie where, Christopher Walken knows what Martin Sheen is about. And he does his speech. And Christopher Walken, he attempts to assassinate Martin Sheen. Martin Sheen takes a baby and tries to shield himself from being killed. But Christopher Walken's character gets killed. So the main character of the movie gets killed, trying to assassinate Martin Sheen. But that's that's the thing with this movie. Like the ending, it's a positive and negative for me. Like I know I could see what the film was doing here, and it doesn't like negate the entire movie for me. I wouldn't say that it's a is it a downbeat ending if Walken dies, but he's like, I got you because you used the Martin Sheen used the baby as a shield, to not be killed. A random baby. So Christopher Walken's like, okay, I'm dying, but I got you. And then you find out that Martin Sheen, like in this vision, like this kind of premonition that he would kill himself. Martin Sheen's character would kill himself, because of all the public. The public knowing that, Martin Sheen used an innocent baby to shield himself from a bullet. So that's why the movie, well, more so the ending, is kind of like again, a positive and negative for me. Because I didn't want Christopher Walken's character to die, but Martin Sheen got his comeuppance. So it's kind of a weird ending. But I will say, man, I know I kind of, gave away a bunch of stuff there. I mean, this movie's been out for a while, so I mean, that's, but I will say that, when it comes to this movie, I still want for people that haven't seen The Dead Zone, it's a really good film. It was great to watch again, very atmospheric, and definitely, throughout the movie, it definitely has a slow build of, Christopher Walken, who has these powers to, where he sees visions, and, the public at times is scrutinizing, is that the word? Or, just, they don't really believe in Christopher Walken, but he has these visions. And now I will say, the one thing about the movie, I don't think the political angle was the strongest. Like for me, I think the whole thing with the killer, trying to find this killer, I think that was more interesting than the political subplot with Martin Sheen. I'm not saying Martin Sheen did terrible. He's fine. Like, he does a believable job, playing this crooked politician. But it seems like for me, trying to find this killer is more interesting than the political angle. And it feels like, this movie tried to do like 3 different stories, or, 3 different plots within a movie where they're trying to capture a killer, or, Christopher Walken's trying to save this boy from being killed, from ice skating. And then you got the Martin Sheen stuff. And, so I can see what the writers were trying to do, trying to, expand on the powers that Christopher Walken now has, where, he can save people and, alter the outcome of these premonitions. But as a result, in the end, Walken dies. So, but I will say still, The Dead Zone, it's a really good movie, really good Stephen King adaptation. And David Cronenberg definitely, brings an atmosphere to this movie. And again, it's a slow build, throughout. And, I really enjoyed the mood, and, I thought it was well directed. Christopher Walken does a great job, great supporting cast. And it was, Martin Sheen, it's interesting to, see him play this character who's, again, very believable as this crooked politician. Even though I wasn't too big on the political angle, the political subplot. But The Dead Zone, if you haven't seen it, it's a really good movie. It's a really good, I wouldn't even call it a horror movie. It's like a thriller, maybe with some elements of fantasy. Like, I don't know if I would say this is a horror movie, but it's more of like a thriller with, some fantasy elements. But, Yeah, this is a really good movie. But thank you, Johnny, for the request. Hope you like this review. But thank you for watching, and have a good day.